our idea was to just show a little video of Kristin and her band in action last January in Sydney, Australia. So here's a little bit of what Throwing Muses does. So, Kristin Hersh, Billy O'Connell. You all know Billy, our new professor here. How's Billy doing, everybody? Doing good? Can we sit normal? Can we sit like in a semicircle so that it's not me interviewing you guys? I don't want to do that. There, that's nice. Now, much better.
The feng shui.
Just wanted it to be much. I just wanted it to be all about the artist.
As it should be. It is all about the artist. That's why we're here.
Exactly.
All of this, we do all of this so that you get to do that. You go through all the shit that you go through, so you get to do that every once in a while, right? Business. It's because we want to do that every once in a while, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's worth. That's worth all the rest of it. I mean, I've come to that conclusion that we suffer through all this other stuff, and some of it's more enjoyable than others, but it's all for that.
It is, yeah. Although sharing it is only part of it, I think. It wants to be shared. It wants to be out in the world. The problem is leaving it unchanged.
Leaving that initial thing that wants to be shared, keeping it from being changed.
Right.
By whom? The man.
The man is a bitch,
The man
yeah.
is a bitch.
Often the people in charge believe in the lowest common denominator. Mm-hmm. The people in charge of sharing it, marketing it, and monetizing it and helping it spread are the ones that want to dumb it down the most, who want to change.
Throwing Muses started?
14.
14. Doing it kind of on your own, I imagine, for a little while before 4AD came in. How old were you when 4AD came?
19.
So for 5 years, you were doing the thing. So incredibly influential, important label in the indie rock world, I suppose, but also tied to a major, at least later on, I guess, maybe not initially.
I signed with Warner Brothers, I guess when I was 20 or something like that.
Right. And then, so this whole trajectory and throughout dealing with the man, having your music dumbed down, I suppose.
Fighting against it.
Fighting against it being dumbed down.
I think that's the big thing.
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah, you can get pretty shrill, and it doesn't really matter.
What do you mean?
I worked my way through the beehive of Warner Brothers, just explaining, like, no, you don't do this. Like, you don't sell crap.
Right.
And they say, that's our job. Our job is to sell crap.
Sell crap.
Well, I think the important thing was, it's also that I think that Kristin knew then what we all know now, which is that the only viability is in niches. And you everything is a niche market now. Everything is about your sub market. Everything is about the core. And if you get that core, Kristin always felt like if she would just make the music that her core loved the most, that excited the core the most, that would radiate outward, and that would create sustainability, that would allow her to keep doing the thing. Because it's not just putting up with all the crap so that you can do that. It's what do you have to do to be able to keep music as your job?
Yeah.
The only people that actually care.
And that's kind of where I was going. So you went through this serpentine trajectory to end up where you've been over the past couple of years through your management, the business that you guys have started, which allows you, I guess, to some degree, to finally get rid of the man and to go more direct without these gatekeepers.
Absolutely.
Well, the man got rid of himself.
Well, that's true.
Too, which is kind of cool.
First, we got rid of the man.
Yeah.
The man got rid of himself.
But, what happened was, I think that when Kristin was signed to Warner Brothers after she was initially on an indie label and generated this great following on a venerable British indie label, she had this very intense core of fans. Then she was signed to Warner Brothers, and their job then was really traditional marketing.
Right.
It was like there wasn't an marketing department when she was signed to Warner Brothers. And they would really, kind of shove artists down people's throat. And ultimately, through time and time again, saying this is the wrong answer for this band. For this band, we're not going to just like shoot this huge wide spray and hope that we get a couple of people wet.
Right.
You know, we were going to try to do something that was valuable to that core constituency, and hope then that would translate, or that would spread. And what we used to say was that we just wanted it to be, we wanted to stand in one place and be there for people to find us, and we wanted to make those people so happy that they told other people.
In the context of all this was sort of pre-internet.
Yes.
To a point.
Yeah,
and
but
certainly
it was still that untapped audience of people who know what good music
Right.
is, know when people are passionate and telling the truth, and it resonates with them, and they respond with their own truth and their own passion. That's the untapped audience that the majors weren't believing was there.
Well, there was no return on investment for them to deal with that audience.
It was harder to reach.
Harder
them,
to
I think,
reach,
yeah.
and they, you know, they had a higher threshold for BS too, or
Right.
lower threshold for BS. So
They didn't want to be sold to.
That's right.
That's true.
That's right.
And they stopped listening to the radio when the radio started sucking.
Right. So go ahead.
And so the issue for us was always, I mean, for me as a manager, knowing that my artist's music was the most meaningful thing to her, the mission was, well, now that we're doing this, I started managing Kristin in, before you were born. In 1989, I guess I started managing Kristin.
Oh, he worked for Warner Brothers. He was the man.
I worked
the
for
bitchy man.
I was the man first. I worked for Warner Brothers 1987, 88, and 89. And then in 1989, I left to manage Kristin. And we started working together then. And there was there was an internet, but it was for the Department of Defense. And over the years that we started working together, we started realizing like we'd give each other courage about the approach we were taking. I'd say, what do you want? You know, you really want just to play music for these people, you know, for the core, and you think there's more of those people out there? And she'd say, yeah, I really think that's the right way to go.
And you've been borne out as being correct, and it's almost as if technology had to catch up to your mindset.
Came to the rescue.
Come to the rescue of the mindset. But I mean, I think it was important to kind of set the context from whence you came. But I think what's relevant to these people is what you're doing now.
Right.
But you know, maybe I always worry because I think that it's too easy for us as teachers and pundits or whatever to kind of go out and say, well, get yourself a website and do this other thing. It's easy. It's not easy.
No.
It's really, really hard. And I mean, I would say that as much of a drag as dealing with Warner was, there probably was some benefit to it to a certain degree in terms of laying some kind of foundation.
It was a good jumping off
point, right.
Because they got me on the radio,
Yep.
they got me in all the magazines, they got me in all the newspapers, and my tours were very successful. But after that, I had to clarify my audience.
Right.
I had dipwads coming to my shows,
Yeah.
and I didn't want them there.
Yeah.
And they weren't going to
How did you get rid of those dickwads, Kristin?
Well, I made records they hated.
Yeah.
And I didn't have Warner Brothers to buy me radio spots anymore, to buy me magazine coverage anymore. So only the real people were there.
Can I ask, did you ever see a dime in artist royalties from Warner's? Did you ever
This is actually a great story.
It's a terrible story.
Yeah. Kristin released a solo record in 1994 that had a song that captured a lot of people's imaginations on it. It was this song called Your Ghost. And the person who kind of pushed Kristin into making a solo record was Michael Stipe, the singer from R.E.M. And he said to Kristin, this song is so great, I'm going to sing on it with you so that all these radio stations will play it because I'm on it. And then, you know, I'll help you get yourself down the road. And Kristin was like, all right, well, that's cool. And so Michael came in.
Well, I mean, you're a fan of Michael's. It's not as if Michael Bolton had come and said, right?
It was a different Michael.
A different Michael,
A good Michael, yeah.
Yes.
I thought that was Michael Bolton.
Yeah, well,
No, he was very, very, very generous with Kristin and Throwing Muses, and it was important for him to champion her solo record at Warner Brothers, and it made money.
Yeah.
It
did.
It was cross collateralized with Throwing Muses, so Throwing Muses' debt didn't affect it, and it made money from like day one.
It cost $5 to make.
It cost nothing to
something.
make,
Nothing
and
to make,
we
yeah.
toured successfully, and it was great. And you know, it was a very successful venture. But then 3 years later, we opted out of our Warner Brothers contract to start our joint venture with Rykodisc at the time. And the next accounting period, we were no longer recouped.
Yeah, magically.
We had been getting artist royalties for the 3 years that we were on Warner Brothers, and the minute we left Warner Brothers, we were suddenly unrecouped. We had no more royalties coming, which
meant we couldn't afford a lawyer to sue them.
Yeah, we were shocked, absolutely shocked. But in 1995, I don't know, when did AOL start? 92 or something? Something like that. There was a big AOL group,
right.
Throwing Muses fan group on AOL, and we joined into that conversation when we saw that it was being carried out. I'm not ashamed to say I had an AOL account.
No, I mean, you didn't have any alternative at that point.
I had no numbers.
The people that should be ashamed are the people that still have AOL accounts.
I had a 5-letter user ID with no numbers.
It's like Billy at AOL.
It was close. It was Thrilly.
Oh, okay.
Throwing Billy.
Throwing Billy.
Yeah. So
Sounds like a porn name.
Thrilly Long at AOL.
So we started being a part of that conversation. We took an active role in the forum at AOL, and people were beside themselves. They were like, "Is this really you? Is it possible? Am I really talking to Kristin?" And we were like, "Yeah, we have a computer."
Did you have a porn name, Kristin?
No.
When you talked on there?
What's your porn name?
Too shy for
Honky
porn.
Bear.
I have a good porn name. What is it?
Oh, your tree and your...
Honky Bear K.
Honky Bear K.
Honky Bear K.
My first teddy bear was white. I was so bummed. I was like, that's
So
not
you
a real
named him
teddy
Honky
bear.
Bear?
I named him Honky Bear, yeah.
She named it Honky Bear. Yeah.
Right.
So it was then that we wanted to see. We knew that like Kristin's most her biggest single issue was that she be able to keep making music that people continue to hear. So we thought that this internet thing is pretty cool. So we started our own website when Mosaic was the browser you used, which was a long time ago. And then on that first website, we had a message board, a forum. And that forum became very popular. And we created this sort of early MySpace thing, which we called The Place, where everybody maintained a page of their own with their own music and bio and blog on it and everything. And we had 2,200 kids who maintained their own pages at our website.
Wow.
And so the forum was going and the place was going, and it was just a community. And we took that opportunity to begin the conversation, as many of you know, George will say, that marketing is a conversation. Markets are conversations. We started the conversation through that website. We were really, we really valued the website, and we treated those people like the gold we thought they were, and we continue to this day. We have a very big online community, 2,000 uniques a day, which is not terrible for an indie artist, and that's when we started taking the pulse of the fan base. That's when we started tuning into what they wanted, what they were like. I mean, that was our sort of, I just read the term digital anthropology. That's what we did. We did like digital anthropology.
Figuring
we
out
kind
who
of
the people were.
You mean like a demographic?
Like
that
psychographics.
But it's not evil.
Yeah, demographics, but not general and evil. Yeah.
I had a publicist sit me down once and say, "You have no demographic." And I was ashamed. I was like, I'm so sorry. She said, "We can't find your magazines, we can't find your people," because they had always described demographic in terms of your race, your age, and your gender. It's like all the things we know we shouldn't judge each other by. They still do. And the internet was the perfect way to find the people who are like-minded regardless of those demographics.
Yeah, that you have no demographic conversation was really important to us, because shortly after that, there was a...
We killed our publicist.
Shortly after that, there was a review, as a preview in the Village Voice for a New York show that Kristin did that said, you should go to a Kristin Hersh show if for no other reason than to see the bizarre cross-section of humanity that shows up at her shows. Black, white, brown, old, young, gay, straight, you know, like it was just everybody. And that to
Something
us,
resembling America.
to us,
Exactly.
that was
Yeah.
just the most wonderful thing to read and to hear. And so, yeah, that's when psychographics became something I could understand.
So walk through, you know, a couple of years ago, you decided to kind of do the thing, the Strange Angels thing, your thing. I'm curious for you, Kristin, of you, whatever preposition it is.
You're just curious.
I'm just curious, George. What?
How often do you think he uses that?
I don't think I've ever used it before.
That's so good.
Yeah, I'll use it more. So this idea that you got to create the thing, you got to be your own brand now. There is no more man, or you know, it's a partnership in every sense of the word. How do you? And we've talked about this a little bit. Like, how do you maintain? Your songs are mysterious, they're evocative, all of those things. How do you maintain the conversation and keep the mystery, or is it not important to keep the mystery?
Which mystery?
Well, see, and this is why it's maybe a bad question. So for me,
it's a good question.
there's a mystery of the music. There's always been a mystery of the music with Throwing Muses from Fat Skier on. You know, of just kind of like, wow, I don't know what in God's name she's talking about. But if I say, Kristin, what's Fat Skier about? Like, you know,
That's perfect. That's part of the not evil demographic, the listener versus the fan.
But I wrestle with this. You guys are very transparent with your audience. You communicate. You have the conversation. You're not really removed in the way that artists were from that process by desire, right? You said you wanted to get rid of that middle person. I guess the question is, how does that impact, if at all, on the art, on the creation?
The idea is that it's the only way for there to be no impact on the art.
I see.
Because the reason I say listener versus fan is because I was always impressed by people who treated me as if I were at work, just doing my job, and they appreciated that, and they wanted it to continue. Those are the people that are there for the next record. But fans are trendier than that.
Yeah.
They seem to be able to be fans of anything. So they're your friend when you're in and not when you're out. Luckily, I've never really been in enough to ever be out. I just keep working because of the listeners. And the mystery is there because my answer is, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
That's what I was going to say is cool about it, is that people come up to Kristin and they'll talk to her. And, you know, of course somebody will say, what's Two-Step about?
Yeah.
And she'll say, what do you think it's about? And
Yeah.
they'll see that she's being genuine in that. She's not being coy
Right.
or playing some bullshit game. She's like, no, what do you think it's about? And they'll say, I don't know, or they'll think maybe she's playing a game.
Right.
And she'll say, no, you know, really? I know what it's about for me, but I can't say what it's about for you.
That's not as wishy-washy as it sounds either.
Well, that's what I'm trying to...
Yeah, because
They get to see that's a genuine answer.
if you could reduce a song to an idea, then the
You don't
song
need a
is
song.
bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
clearly it shouldn't exist. It doesn't need
All
to.
the poetry's
The idea
gone.
should exist, right. But the song should work as a scrim for others to view their life pictures through. I know my life pictures that I see through that song, but theirs are just as valid. And that's why the song is alive. I've tried to make dead songs live because those are the songs that Warner Brothers loved, and radio loved, and they're just not alive. You can't do it. You can reduce those to an idea.
Okay, so down this theme, I mean, I think you guys represent what I believe is the current, the present, and the future of music. It's you started out talking about niches. You guys are cottage industry, right? And it's a growing cottage industry, and it doesn't necessarily reduce it to a small thing. I happen to know how you guys are doing, and it's amazing what you've built. But it's limitless what you could do. You know, what is, and this is kind of what's getting. So, what is the dynamic of now being so intimately involved on the business side with respect to the creative side? Because I think that's a lot of artists wrestle with. I'm a creative person. I don't want to do the business thing. Now, you guys are fortunate. You kind of, but still.
It's hard. It's wearing. And I love that I have found amazing people who respond to the music, and the music becomes something that happens between us. As groovy as that sounds, that's actually real. Right. It's like alchemy. But to imagine that I'm somehow constantly in the role of selling it is very difficult for me.
Does that impact on the art? How do you separate, I guess is what I'm getting at.
I thought it didn't impact on the art because I have no control over the music.
That's right.
I hear songs. They're auditory hallucinations, and I copy them down. So really, I have almost nothing to do with it. I studied classical guitar for years. I can play what I hear, but that's all I do. I just play what I hear. And yet, there was something in the production techniques I was using that I only realized after the fact had an ear and an eye to the outside world. And I could shoot myself for it. And now those particular songs are not timeless. I'd like to re-record them so that I could make them timeless, because initially they were. But not until we started Cash Music did I see that I should have been, every work should have been a work of obsession. Mm-hmm. And instead, there was more craft and inspiration in what I was doing.
That's an interesting segue, so go ahead.
What I think you were asking...
It's always hard to know.
No, but what I think you were getting at when you asked the question was, perhaps you had the suspicion that now that Kristin's so involved in the business part, maybe it's dragging the art down, or
just there's some tension there, maybe.
Or there's tension,
absolutely.
but it's kind of there's sort of the inverse has happened. Like now that it's just between Kristin and the audience, she now feels like a scientist who has no sponsors anymore. It's just pure research. Right. Now she sits down to write a song. And she didn't realize for years and years that there was a voice, a little niggling voice in the back of her head telling her, like, oh, people aren't going to like that. Oh, no, somebody's going to say something about that. Yeah. Now that's gone. That voice is gone. And now that it really is about being in a niche, now that it really is just between Kristin and her audience, that voice is gone. And even though she definitely has to get her hands dirtier than she ever used to have to be, get them. It's now the songwriting is more pure, and the process is more pure.
So tell us about the business model that allows for that purity.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you asked.
Thank you. Yes. I'm a good interviewer.
Like 10 or 12 years ago, we started this thing trying to get Kristin independent, and that's kind of why we're sitting here tonight. Because like 10, 12 years ago, we started doing the things we thought we had to do in order to have this artist who was completely reliant on major labels be completely independent. And in 2007, we got to a point where we felt like like a baby bird gets its feathers and it finally fledges, it can jump off the nest. We finally felt like, okay, let's get out of all our deals. Let's just not go back to any labels. Let's just do this thing we've been wanting to do for a long time. And we definitely rallied the troops. We had been communicating to the fan base. This is something we're going to have to do someday. Someday we're going to need to keep track of you guys. Someday we're going to need you to be really involved if ever we're going to not be involved with another company. And we got a really positive response from the fan base. And sure enough, in the summer of 2007, we started this thing called Cash Music, which is a nonprofit. CASH stands for Coalition of Artists and Stakeholders. And the idea was that there could be a business model for music that was similar to that which community-supported agriculture embraces. I'm a farmer. I raise these beautiful heirloom peaches, and a lot of people love them, but I never know if I'm going to sell them all and make money. It's too expensive for me to raise these things, so I say I'm not going to raise these peaches. But a bunch of people in the community come to me and say, raise those peaches. Here's the money to raise them. When you get them, give them to us. We're pre-buying the peaches.
I think you're being compared to a peach.
I'll take that.
She's my little peach. But we...
you should say that those peaches are better than the other ones.
Those peaches are...
That matters.
They're good for you.
They are.
They're not full of chemicals. They taste better.
And they're funny looking.
They're quirky peaches,
right?
But they taste sweeter, and they're not like ones you can get in the store. All right. So we drew the parallel between that and music, and we said to the fans, Kristin wants to keep making this music, and it's healthy and it's quirky, but it's good for you, and we're going to make it just for you. Will you give us the money we need to do that? And here's how we're going to do it. And we gave them tiers at which they could be involved. We promised them that every month Kristin would put a brand new song, a studio recording, up online free of charge. lossless, high-res MP3, normal.
And that's without any.
No DRMs, no participation.
You don't have to pay a thing for that. You get it. Anyone who wants
none of
it.
you ever have to drop a dime in a bucket or buy anything. You can all have Kristin's music if you go to cashmusic.org. Lossless audio files. Now she's got like 18 or something up there over the course of 2 years.
50 Foot Waves record.
And 50 Foot Wave, she has a punk rock band called 50 Foot Wave. We have a gig and a half of music there, also lossless, open source music.
Do you do it under sort of Creative Commons license or anything, or is it just...
Well, Creative Commons by NCSA, so fairly non-restrictive Creative Commons, non-commercial license.
Right.
So if none of you know about Creative Commons, please go to creativecommons.org and learn how you can modify copyright so that you're not hypocrites, and so that people can use your music the way it's meant to be used. And you can control your copyright by licensing your music through Creative Commons. Anyway.
I ruined your train of thought. So once a month you get and then what are the tiers, how to go?
Yep, so once a month she puts up a song. That's free. The music, we don't put a price on it. There's a little voluntary contribution, listener-determined value. 50 Foot Wave did this free music EP in 2005. 2 years before Radiohead did In Rainbows, they did a free listener-determined value open source record, and it was downloaded 2.5 million times. 1.5 million verified through emule.com. So it was amazing, an amazing success of penetration and a great loss of anonymity, which is great. So at Cash Music, you can take the song for nothing. You could get involved $10 a month if you want to be a strange angel, part of her fan club, basically. You get free tickets to her gigs. If she plays a gig and you want to go, you send us an email. You go for nothing. You get her new CDs free of charge on the day on the day we receive them from the manufacturing plant. You don't wait for street date or any of that crap. You get access to a media-rich page full of exclusives like downloads and videos and all this crazy stuff that we don't upload, generally speaking. And then above that, so that's $10 a month. And then we did premium levels, where for $500, a single payment of $500, you could come hang out in the studio while we record. And we've had a lot of people take us up on that. For $1,000, you're a sponsor. You get your name or your company's name on the back of the record and all of the previous benefits. And then for $5,000, you can be an executive producer, because for $5,000, that's what you are.
Right.
You're giving us the money
for the record.
Because the audience is the record company.
So you get an executive producer credit, and you can have all the benefits. And we've had participation at all levels, and it's been a monumental success for Kristin. And all we want to do now is continue to delight the people who've been supporting her for 2 years now. Yeah. We're past the 2-year mark.
And you see it. So what's next? I mean, how do you relate with this? Is it, you still do the record cycle, but you're also doing songs a month. So there's a lot on you. I mean, is this a good, healthy, creative thing, or is it a pressure-filled one where you've got to come up with that new song a month? Or
I don't lack for material.
Yeah.
But it was frustrating to be forced into the studio for a month at a time or 2 weeks at a time, and to have to bring it all about. A song is a sentence, as a record is a paragraph, and sometimes it doesn't pull itself together in exactly the right way. You don't grab the right performance. Your production is off-kilter in one song, and it sets the whole record off balance, and that's it. That was your studio time for the year. Then you're on the road working that for the next couple of years, and you have to live with it.
You're talking about more in kind of the old
That's the
model.
old model.
Yeah.
At this time, I've been able to just race back to the lab with all the ideas that are always going on in my head. And I do liken it to being a scientist, because it's looking for the truth. And the only truth I know about is sound. That's the only language I really speak fluently. And yet I never stop thinking about it. And to encapsulate all that mind work into 2 weeks isn't really going to work out, but into spread it out over a year, and the record begins to take on a life of its own.
And so are you off album cycles? I mean, I know you're just finishing up a new record now, so but
We're making it up.
you just kind of grab 12 songs or something, and then that becomes the album.
Yeah.
The year's worth of songs was originally supposed to be the record, and I realized some of the songs were falling through the cracks and weren't helping say what the record needed to say. So I went into the next year, took some material out of that, remixed, re-recorded. Because I play all the instruments, I can say like, "Oh, that drummer sucked. Like, fire her," and then go in and replay it. Right. And now it's a very cohesive piece that I am happy to tour for the next couple of years.
And by the way, we're all making it up. You guys just happen to be doing it with some sense. Anybody that's not making it up these days, unless they're looking at your model, what are you going to do?
Well, we've been.
I've wondered.
Huh?
We've wondered that.
Yeah.
We've definitely been wondering whether we should be thinking CD at all, but I think at this point, we'll stick with CD for another
one. I think this last Christmas is probably the last of the CDs.
The CD Christmas.
No, I think it is. I mean, after this Christmas, people really going to buy CDs?
50 Foot Wave did vinyl.
Yeah, well, vinyl.
Yeah, 50 Foot Wave did an EP that's like a single 26-minute song called Power and Light, and on that one, we just did.
It's not as boring as it sounds. It's got a lot of movements in it.
Yeah, it's like in 7 movements. It's just this huge slab of like disgusting noise, in a good way.
He's our manager.
But we only did vinyl and digital on that, and it was great. We sold a lot of vinyl, and nobody really missed the CD. I think that for Kristin, it's a little different.
Yeah.
Like 50 Foot Wave has a different.
Yeah, there's still.
It's code for we care in that world.
Yeah,
it's vinyl.
Vinyl, right.
Yeah, it's also our high res, basically.
Yeah, right. Better fidelity.
High def.
High def, yeah. Should we open it up to some questions? I have no idea what time it is there. Huh? 5:37?
Oh.
Questions?
Jeez. Sorry we talked so much.
I can keep talking. Don't make me. No questions?
Nobody has questions about
there's
new
a
models?
question. Go ahead.
All right.
So what would you say would be a model similar to yours for independent artists like us that are just trying to do
We're just starting, right? I wouldn't want to be you. No, I'm kidding. No, I understand what you mean. I was joking. I think I would want to be you. I think the important thing is to start telling the story. It's not to think big. It's to think about who your first listener is, who your first 100 listeners are, and then what you can do to delight people over and over and over again. Like, just figure out who that audience is, and work for that audience. And if you're talking about mechanics, like what mechanics you can put in place, you need a web presence. You need some way of like continually releasing content on a regular basis. You have to be out doing it. If you're new, especially, I think if you're not on the road or you're not playing live, as painful as that may be, you just have to do it. You got to go and take your lumps and work.
I do stupid stuff. I have a daily photo blog on my site.
Photos are great.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Twitter, a constant, annoying Twitter. I write blogs.
Do you like any of that stuff? Or do you do it because you know it's important to do, or
both?
Somewhere
As
in the
a
middle?
shy person, I think most actual musicians are very shy and
I
are
agree.
not the show-off ones.
I agree.
It's difficult for me to really get it up for that stuff.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it because it's a great way to clarify your audience, because the assholes hate it.
Yeah.
They hate
Why do you
humor
keep
because they don't
taking
get it.
pictures of lights.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, but I think, and it's an important point, because I mean, you have at best conflicted emotions about some of this stuff, and for you as running the business, because management is all now being a business development guy, you've got to have a willing participant.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, clearly you're mature and you understand that this is part of the game now. Guess what? I'm not doing Twitter. I'm not going to do a blog. I'm not going to do that stuff. It's like, Okay, well,
Yeah.
best of luck to you,
Well,
It's always been hard, though. It's hard.
Yeah.
Like, to live on the road is really hard, and people say it all the time. It's not romantic.
Yeah.
It's a little romantic, but it's physically difficult to not bathe, to not sleep, and to not eat for months at a time, years at a time. They book your tour, and it looks like it's 3 months long. They send you home for 2 weeks, and you have another 3 months tour, and then another one, and
If
you
you're
don't
lucky.
have a home.
if you're lucky.
Well,
If
this is
you're
the
lucky.
thing.
Exactly. That's what we're aiming for. So I'll take Twitter over sleeping in a van for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Even though I was lucky to do it.
Right, right. What are the big hurdles technologically? I mean, I think that's the thing. It's easy for us to say, well, you need a way to download your music and get people to pay for it. That's not easy. Still in 2009, that's not dead easy. And it's reprehensible that it's not, but it's not.
No, I mean, there are ways, there are things like, WordPress is, I think WordPress is invaluable.
Sure.
You can bring up a pretty decent website, blog,
pretty
with
fast.
the ability to upload and distribute media. That's pretty handy. It isn't that easy to find your way. But what we did with Kristin that I think everybody needs to end up, will ultimately end up having to do, is find the thing that resonates with you. There are going to be certain choices you can make that will be relevant and resonant to you. Like, Kristin did a bunch of stuff, and but then she was tweeting, and she was like, I really like Twitter. This is great. It's like 140 characters of this impressionistic little statement, and all together they look like a poem, and it's kind of cool, and you can be funny with it. And so that kind of stuck. And then she's a great photographer, and she takes pictures with a phone photo, and so every day, with her phone camera, and so every day she uploads a phone photo to a photo blog. And that's been another way that she can keep giving people a glimpse of what it is she does and what her sensibilities are and what's important to her.
It's these multiple touch points, like repeatedly. You can't make a record every 18 months and disappear.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
And the listeners are looking for like-minded. By a lousy one, unless the people making it are like-minded, unless they're funny or smart or caring or whatever you care about. You have to be able to relate to them, and it does really help.
We've been keeping you waiting, sorry.
Oh, I was gonna.
Didn't know you were there, dude.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, how viable has your pay for what you want model has been? Because I remember you were talking about the EP, and you had 2.5 million downloads, but it would suck if you only got like $2 from that.
It would suck, and it was really funny because 50 Foot Wave really would have not seen anything from a record company for that, and they made a great deal of money that year from people just dropping whatever they wanted in a tip jar. But what I think is pretty telling right now is that at Cash Music, we give all the songs away. It says the songs are free. If you want to put something in a tip jar, you can. And the average donation for a song on a download is $3. That's so much more than people think anyone will pay for music.
My first band, Throwing Muses, that we did, had to dissolve because we ran out of money to work, because it cost money to be on the road and it cost money to be in the studio. So we just stopped working. We didn't break up. And in fact, in my opinion, our records got better and better and better as we went on. So our last record was our best, and we still had to stop. So the people who love Throwing Muses know that bands can die, and they don't want that to happen to 50 Foot Wave, and they don't want me to stop working. So they tend to give. They do stupid stuff, like they buy 10 of the same CDs off the stage after a show, and just
Give
so
them
we
out.
have gas money.
Well, and
yeah.
they give them out.
Well, we do this thing called universal wholesale, too, where if you're willing to buy 6 of a CD and you understand that they're not returnable, you can buy them at a wholesale price. So, if you buy, if you want to buy 6 Kristin records, you buy them for $7 or $8.
And these are the things that you can do because it's your business. You don't have to worry about paying mechanical royalties out because it's all part of the same pot,
Right.
and that allows you a tremendous amount of flexibility.
Right.
You couldn't do that wholesale thing if you were doing a covers record.
Right.
We
That's
had
true.
we had a publishing deal for Kristin on the table 2 years ago, right before Cash Music launched. It was a very, very tempting offer to take, a lot of money.
Is it an admin deal or just they
It was
could buy
a
the
co-publishing
co-pub deal?
It was a co-publishing deal she has like 200 songs that have been released between all her entities. And so that was it's a lot of catalog. And they thought, surely we can do something with this.
Right.
So they made us a fairly attractive offer. We ended up turning it down because I knew we were just about to do cash music.
Yeah.
And if we had somebody who had a say in what we did with the copyrights, in whether or not we could use Creative Commons, I mean, it hurt to say no to that check. It hurt. But we did it because we needed to be able to embrace the new stuff and embrace the new models. If I couldn't Creative Commons license her music, we would not be where we are now with the independence that we're enjoying.
Or the name your own price thing.
That's a great question, because I was just thinking, I had a little time off between my last class and this. I was just thinking how scared I am that all these subscribers are going to go and do something else. And I keep thinking, Jesus, all they have to do is walk away, and we're starting from scratch. What can we do to make them happy? And I realized that whatever we do to make them really happy will also make them want to share what Kristin does with other people. So it's important to us to employ what I know I've seen George refer to as shareable objects. You know, we try to give people a way of turning their friends on to Kristin, a way of looking smart and cool for turning their friends on to what Kristin does. Some of that is like stuff like universal wholesale, like buy 6 records at a wholesale price, and we don't care what you do with them. You can give them all away because you got a break on them. You could take them to a flea market and sell them for retail. Put them up in your coffee shop. We don't care. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the mission right now is growing the subscriber base we have now into a broader subscriber base so that we can offer better stuff, so that we can keep creating value, more and more value.
People like giving. It's strange.
When you ask and they have a connection
And when
with
you need,
people will give.
A studio is very expensive. It's $1 a minute. And
that's a cheap studio.
Yeah,
Right.
that's my special rate. It's hard to make a record.
Yeah, it
and they know it, and they keep giving because they want to hear it.
Right.
Natives are getting restless.
Natives are getting restless. Well, you guys are seeing the future of the music business right here. And we're lucky to have Billy and Kristin in our little ecosystem here. And thank you guys for sharing your story.
Thank you.